Hello and welcome everybody to another deck primer here at StarCityGames.com. My name's Corey Baumeister. This week I'm going to be bringing you a updated version of Izzet Arclight Phoenix. I just love this deck. I hope there are people out there that love this deck as much as me. Just blue-red spells, being able to be taking so many constant game actions is just right up my alley. This deck's doing incredibly powerful things, and I just absolutely love where it's at right now. So I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of Izzet Phoenix. We have seen this deck go through so many highs and lows, as well as so many different iterations of the correct way to build it. And I do believe that this version is at its final form. It's most powerful it can be. It's most well-rounded deck for the metagame. And I'm going to tell you why after we talk about the phases a little bit. So at one point, it's been through 8 Drakes. Enigma Drakes, Crackling Drakes. It was a little clunky, usually not the best. It went to a bunch of 1-drops with like Crash Through and the First Strike cantrip. I'm drawing a blank on that. It's went to versions that have run 4 Electromancers with a bunch of Radical Ideas. And I have a big bone to pick with Radical Idea. I think this card is just the worst card in Izzet Phoenix. I've never understood why people have played it. And every time I see a list that I want to try out, the first thing I do is cut Radical Ideas for literally anything else. Now, Electromancer has been a good card in the past, and it is very good against these green-based Nissa decks. It's really what allows you to have some of these explosive starts without the card Finale of Promise. But in this metagame right now, it doesn't make too much sense because these Nissa decks are not the number 1 played deck. They might not even be the number 2 played deck. I would probably rank it Esper, Gruul, and then maybe Nissa-based decks. But I think Augur of Bolas is something that gains you value over time. People do not want to kill Augur of Bolas because it's a bad creature. It's a 1/3 body for 2. That's not good. And it also pesters planeswalkers like Narset and Teferi Time Reveler, which happen to be Izzet Phoenix's kind of kryptonite next to Simic Nexus. But let's get real. That deck is falling off the face of the earth. Oh, sorry. Something that this list is doing that other Phoenix decks haven't done in the past are playing, let me see if I can scroll down here, are playing 4 of the best card in the deck. Finale of Promise is broken. It is messed up. It is busted beyond belief. It is whatever you want to say it is. It does it all. You don't have to play Goblin Electromancer if you just play 4 of that. I really love maxing out on the 4 of each of the sorcery spells that draw you to discard a card. You almost always want to be playing one of these on turn 2. Not even if you have Phoenix in the graveyard, but basically all you want to be doing on turn 1 through 3 is controlling the board state, shocking and lightning striking and lava coiling, anything that's going to give you an early onslaught, and then sculpting it so that on turn 4, you have an effective sorcery and an effective instant that costs 2 or less that you can finale from your graveyard and have the chance to bring back 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 Arclight Phoenixes. That's basically what you want to be setting up for. And if you don't have a good finale, you get to settle with playing either Crackling Drake or God Eternal Kefnet. This deck truly does basically the same thing every game, and every single time it's very powerful. I think Izzet Phoenix right now is at a great place in the metagame, based on just the cards that are popular right now. We're seeing like Tyrant Scorn out of Esper variants, which if you look at our deck, it's either killing an Augur of Bolas, which is laughable, or it is bouncing a God Eternal Kefnet, Arclight Phoenix, or Crackling Drake. That's as close to a dead of a card as you can possibly get right now. Basically, the metagame is not really remembering Izzet Phoenix as a tier 1 deck. Like, we haven't had a lot of huge standard tournaments in a while. It's been focusing on Modern with the release of Modern Horizons. But the metagame just isn't really attacking Phoenix in the right way right now, and I think this is why I've been doing so well with it, and this is why I wanted to showcase this deck to you, maybe be a knock on the door and remind you and be like, hey, Izzet Phoenix is still busted. All right, so let's get to the individual card choices here. Opt, Shock, can't touch those. Those are always going to be great, unless for some reason people stop playing Llanowar Elf, Goblin Electromancer, Hero of Precinct 1. Incubation Druid, Growth Chamber Guardian. I mean, the list goes on. Shock is insane. Opt is one of the best ways to dig you there. Talked about Augur Bolus, how I think it's actually in a good spot right now. Usually if Augur Bolus reads, for me, or what it's been like for me lately is rearrange the bottom 3 cards of your library, because I don't think I've ever hit on this deck until this version. I don't know if the numbers are set up in such a way. I'm not Frank Karsten. We'll have to call him in to get the numbers around. But I've been having such great luck with Augur Bolus, and maybe that's why I'm so high on the deck these days, because I've been having choices with Augur Bolus. You heard me right, choices. 2 different cards that I'm choosing from. We'll move on. I love 4 and 4 with Chart of Course and Tormenting Voice. It's just something you need. They are so great. You always want to have one, as I mentioned earlier. 3 Lava Coil. Lava Coil is a card where there's just so many X4s in the metagame. A lot of things that need exiling, like Rekindling Phoenixes. Just a great removal spell altogether. Great against Gruul. Gruul Spellbreaker, Arclight. It kind of does it all. Lightning Strike is a card that I wasn't really sure on, but it's one of those cards that's a necessary evil against these Esper decks. Most people, when they play Narset against you, they tick down immediately because, that's what your Planeswalker does. That's kind of brained into our memory here, our just muscle memory that I play a Planeswalker, I'm going to activate it. It's actually the incorrect move to be doing against Izzet Phoenix. It is not really the play you want to do, but people are still doing it constantly. Here's my PSA. Playing against Izzet Phoenix, play a Narset, forget it's there. Make your opponent deal with it first. Granted, this is contextual to each game, and sometimes that is not the correct thing to do, but for the most part, if my opponents had just never activated Narset, I would have lost many more games. But Lightning Strike does that, as well as going to the face to kind of win out of nowhere. Like, oh, you're at 13, you're at 12. All right, end step Lightning Strike, you untap, finale, Lightning Strike, put you down to 6, attack with 2 Arclights, extend the hand, Those kind of sequences happen actually a lot. 4 finale, best card in the deck, never play less than 4. I'd play 5 if they'd let me. I want to point up that we do have 21 lands here. Electromancer makes your stuff a little cheaper, so you're able to cheat on lands, but that's also a problem. You constantly just want to be hitting your land drops. Whenever I cast my 4th land drop and cast a 4-drop on turn 4, I usually win these games. It's just, that's how powerful these 4-drops are. And then let's go to the creature spread. 4 Arclight Phoenix, pretty tough to change. 3 Crackling Drake was a little weird to me. I just think it's the best card in the deck, and it kind of pained me to go down 1, but I really didn't want 6 4-drops because that gets to be a little clunky. I was playing 4 Crackling Drake and 1 Kefnet because I'm like, it's legendary, but there's so many matchups where God Eternal Kefnet is by far the best thing you can be casting. Anything that's red, any red-based deck, you just want to be casting it. Any time when your opponent's playing a permission deck, you just want to be casting God Eternal Kefnet as your first creature because, let's get real, it's probably going to die. But that just means it's coming back in 3 turns, and as long as you're at parity or not too severely behind, you have the luxury to just, in 2 turns or maybe 1 turn, because this deck draws 1,000 cards on a daily basis, that you're going to cast it within 1 to 2 turns, usually 2, of course. But yeah, we'll move on to the sideboard choices here. So we got 3 Spell Pierce here. I really love the cheap, effective counter magic here. Negate is kind of a thing of the past. When you want to be bringing in Spell Pierce, unfortunately, your opponents usually have Teferi Time Reveler, and then you can't really justify having Negate. Now, granted, against like Nexus and, the Dimir deck that we played, we brought them in because they didn't have Teferi Time Reveler because... we just saw blue-black here for anybody who wants to fast forward to that. It's just not as good these days. Shivan Fire, I really wanted a 5th shock for when I'm on the draw against anything that has effective 1-drops. White Weenie, Red, or Llanowar Elves. Plus, it can deal 4 damage, so Shivan Fire is a pretty flexible card. Lava Coil is the best red removal. Anytime you play against Arclight Phoenixes, Rekindling Phoenix, Gruul Spellbreaker, any X4, pretty self-explanatory what it's good against. You want to be bringing those in. You want to max out on them. Narset, a great card against anything blue. blue-based decks, it's great against Phoenix, like I said. I play this against Phoenix and I say go. Like, just don't click it against him. I can't stress that enough because I see that. That is the most common play mistake I see against me is people activating Narset when you should just play Narset and ship. Legion Warboss, great at pestering Planeswalkers. Something you want to be doing. Haste is probably the best mechanic in the metagame right now in a Planeswalker world that we're living in. And realistically, it just might be the best mechanic in Magic history. Haste is just a broken effect. Being able to attack with something your opponent doesn't know that they have to be playing around is just, it's just not fair. This is one card I'm not sure about. Not because I don't think it's good, but I think it's so good I kind of want to have a second copy. And like I said, Negate is kind of that card that I just think is okay. So one question that I last minute changed to was the second Beacon Bolt to second Negate. Not sure about it. The only reason I did it is because I feel like our creature matchups are already so good. And our Nexus matchup is a train wreck in case we run into it. And I wanted to increase our Esper control matchup because that deck has been popping up a lot. Ral Izzet Visery is very good against Esper. Also good against any of these mid-range aggro decks. Like, if you can get some value off of it and they don't have D-Spark, you usually kind of take over the game with this. It's also an alternate win condition whenever they just have a bunch of ways to deal with creatures. All right, everybody, that's Izzet Arclight Phoenix. I hope you guys enjoy the games. Stay tuned.